Justice Leonen.
Because I was barely able to make out some of your explanation, can I ask?
Of course, Your Honor.
Can I ask a bit of clarification? The proposition that the RH law is to encourage sex, would you say that this is correct?
No, Your Honor, it is entirely false. It is farthest from the truth from the framers of from the legislators who made this. The intention of this law on that aspect, on the aspect of sex, is to make the information available to those who need it, either age appropriately because they are minors, or for women and couples to use the information to the extent that they need it in planning their family. There is no intention to change the beliefs of Filipinos, to make children or teens, or for that matter, young adults, promiscuous in any way. In fact, I think media and society does a good job of doing that already. If at all, this will make teenagers and the youth more responsible because they know the effects of their actions. Your Honor, I mentioned in one hospital alone 2,000 teen pregnancies. 2,000 teen pregnancies, and asked them in a very popular show. They featured a young girl who wanted to commit suicide because she thought that she could get pregnant from kissing. She was going to commit suicide. And there is the opposite example that I can give. There are teenagers who have sex who had no knowledge that that act was already a violation of their person and also could make them pregnant.
The next proposition is teaching students sex makes them promiscuous. Is this something that is also a premise of this law?
Definitely not, Your Honor, and let me just add that that is always the position put forth by some groups who do not believe in any way in educating children about reproductive health, and it is the belief of Congress that it is only through education that you can prepare our children to be responsible adults.
That teaching them sex can make them more responsible about the sexual act. Can that be possible?
Well, let me just clarify the statement, Your Honor. Not when His Honor says teaching sex, I would phrase it a different way. Teaching reproductive health education, because teaching sex may give the connotation that teaching the sexual act. Again, it would depend on the age. And we leave that to the Department of Education to determine that.
And there is something about sex as a reality which causes a lot of passion among human beings. But maybe just as a to lay the basis for my question relating to that, is it possible to use physics for immoral things, such as, for instance, to create a bomb or to calculate the trajectory of a mortar?
So His Honor's question is there a moral issue?
Yes. Is it possible to use physics for bad ends, such as, for instance...
Well, yes, if you're going to create a bomb and wipe out a particular religious group or a particular sector of society.
As a matter of fact, my property law professor also demonstrated that it's possible to use property law for devious things, is it not?
Yes, Your
Or law
Honor.
for that matter. In fact, there is even the theory of the bad man by Oliver Wendell Holmes. Is that not correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes. So sex can be used for in an improper way or for immoral ends. Is that not correct?
It can be used in many ways, Your Honor, including improper and immoral ends, as I was saying
But it is an
earlier.
inherent human function. Is it not correct?
It is, Your Honor. We
And,
would not be here if not for sex.
And there are many theories about what you do with sex. For some, it is for procreation.
Yes.
For some, it is shall we say, a celebration of one's intimacy with another person.
Yes, Your Honor.
For others, it is recreation.
Yes, Your Honor.
Can we not accept that?
We accept that, Your Honor.
Can the state dictate what sex is for?
No, Your Honor, and that is why this law needs to be able to be applicable to any person with any belief that they have.
In your experience as a representative of our people having been voted into the Senate, can you tell us why many in our population say that whenever you talk about sex, it is bad? Why is that so?
I believe, Your Honor, it's because we do consider ourselves a conservative society, and we are they say 90% Catholic, and the Catholic religion teaches abstinence and sex only during marriage. And so for that reason, any indication of any sexual activity outside of those boundaries are considered immoral by a portion of our society, but not by others, and therefore that in itself creates the conflict of understanding and views on how to come about with a policy that will be applicable to all.
If a dominant majority of the sovereign Filipino people are Catholic, why is it that we just don't adopt, or why can't we not just adopt the morality of Catholicism into our law?
Well, that is precisely why our Constitution has the freedom of religion clause, Your Honor. It's as simple as that. When I gave my sponsorship speech, I said I would stand up for the right of every Catholic, even if there was just one Catholic. And I will stand up for the right of one person of any religion to exercise their freedoms. And this is what that is all about. That one religion cannot dictate what this law is about.
And for the mothers that you've shown on the PowerPoint presentation a while ago, this discussion that we're having right now is abstract. Is that not correct? That for them, sex is something that they do with their husbands because their husbands demand it, but they have no theoretical or moral idea of why sex is bad or sex is good. Is that not correct?
Well, sex is just part of the relationship with their husband. And if I may add a very controversial line, which is in the reproductive health law, that is why we fight for the right of women to safe and satisfying sex. Because that is included in in the women we show here. They cannot have safe and satisfying sex because they want to give in to their husband. How can that be safe if they know they will get pregnant or they might die? How can that be satisfying if they know they are fearful that they will get pregnant with the next encounter they have with their husband? And that is why it is an integral part of reproductive health.
In all probability, the parents of people who cannot afford 3 square meals a day, in all probability, will they be able to get into a private school?
No, Your Honor.
Is it also possible that some of their children, or perhaps they themselves, can get into a public school, like the University of the Philippines?
It is possible.
Given the socialized tuition fee that
Yes,
they
Your
have,
Honor.
that there is subsidy for bracket E, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, Your Honor.
We are familiar with that
Yes, Your
because
Honor.
we come from that school and you are in the Board of Regents. Is that not correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes. So it is possible that they get to a public school, not a private school. Is that not correct?
It is most likely that they will go to public school. There is always a chance if they have some talent or any other skill that they could get a scholarship in a private school. But their bigger chance is to enter a public school.
So the children may get to a public school. The parents of these children, where will they get their sex education from?
The parents.
Yes.
Well, Your Honor, that is a requirement that is now included in the law. It is actually just a repetition of a
Without this
presidential
law,
decree.
would you say that they will get their education on sex from television shows?
That is the question, Your Honor. We have no idea. They could get it from commentaries. They can get it over men drinking beer and getting drunk and talking about raping their child.
And therefore, when we say that we should rely only on the family to be able to teach our children sex, we are not taking as a paradigm the people from your village. We are taking as a paradigm the entire Filipino people. Is that not correct?
Yes, Your Honor, but if I may add, even the people from my village, even my friends, ask me to talk to their children about sex because I am more comfortable as a mother. I don't know why, but I am comfortable talking about it. And so even educated parents have difficult time talking to their children about reproductive health issues. So from across classes, it is a difficult topic, understandably.
You have indeed a very interesting village. But in
Yes.
any case, so what we are saying is that the reproductive health education found in Section 14, is it designed to replace the abilities of those that have knowledge already about sex, are courageous about it, or have some very definite moral framework for it? Is it a substitute for that kind of an education?
Definitely not, Your Honor.
Is it a substitute for the education that we get when we enter a Catholic church?
No, Your Honor. All these educations that we would receive from our families, from our church, from religious organizations, would still continue to be there.
Senator, can you point to us the basis in law of what you said that the parents are going to be involved in terms of the preparation of the curricula and in the determination of the content of the curricula in the law.
Yes, Your Honor. In the bottom half of Section 14, the title of the section is Age and Development Appropriate Reproductive Health Education. It states, provided that flexibility in the formulation and adoption of appropriate course content, scope, and methodology in each educational level or group shall be allowed only after consultation with parental teachers, community associations, school officials, and other interest groups. Your Honor, this was actually an amendment made by the anti-RH senators and congressmen to accommodate precisely the concern that His Honor mentioned.
Thank you. A few more questions on another point, and this is on conscientious objection. Can you tell us, Senator, why the qualification in relation to conscientious objectors?
Why, Your Honor, do we allow conscientious objections?
Yes. How it got into the law?
Yes, Your Honor.
That's what I mean.
Your Honor, the primary intention of the reproductive health law, consistent with the Constitution, is to provide health care, and in this case, reproductive health care, which is considered a right of women and of people in general. So, Your Honor, the issue comes up on the use of contraceptives, where some religious groups, in particular the Catholic groups, do not believe in the use of contraceptives. So what happens when the only access to a doctor that you have happens to be a believer of their faith dictates that they cannot use contraceptives, and then they will state that they cannot advise you as such? I'll give you a case in point, Your Honor. Ligations are usually done in the right after the pregnancy. So I know women who have already concluded that after this baby is born, the third, the fourth, whatever, magpapaligate ako. And then there are cases where they enter a Catholic hospital not knowing that the Catholic hospital and the doctor will not perform ligation, and they lose that opportunity to have that ligation. So that was a specific instance that I could not forget, because I believe that should be information that should be provided to a patient. The hospital and the doctor should declare, if the patient tells them, that I do not expect the doctor to read their mind, but if you did go through prenatal care, it is certain that you have discussed this with your doctor. So for your doctor to tell you after you come out of anesthesia that, sorry, we were not able to perform because it is against our religion, to me, violates the right to health of that person.
So in other words, Senator, you're saying that there are two parties involved in this kind of a relationship. One is the doctor or the health worker that
Health
is
provider,
involved.
yes.
And the second one is the patient.
The patient, Your Honor.
So when we talk about conscientious objection, we're only talking about the doctor's conscience. Is that not correct?
We are talking about the doctor's conscience, but I guess it would also...
In other words, it is focused on the service provider, the doctor, etc. But there is nothing here in the law, in fact, that says that it is the patient who is actually wanting the treatment or wanting the advice. So there is also a patient here, and there is such a thing as patient rights. Is that not correct?
Yes, Your Honor. Yes.
Conscientious objection is therefore the right of the doctor. However, we have to also take a look at and balance the right of the patient.
Yes, Your Honor. Yes, Your Honor.
And if the patient does not happen to be Catholic, but rather someone who really wants advice on how to space their children and wants a full menu of options, when they go to a conscientious objector and you do not provide for the provision that they can be referred, then the right of that patient will be violated. Is that not correct?
Yes, Your Honor. Precisely, we crafted this law knowing that many women will go to a healthcare provider not knowing what her options are, not knowing the full range of services that are available, that are affordable, that would be personally best for her given her age, given her situation with her husband, given the number of children that she has. So it is two relationships that are come into play here, Your Honor, and we need to protect the right of this patient to that information.
In fact, this is not a strange thing, because this is in the rules of obstetrical and
Yes.
gynecological society. It's a very difficult word, and OB-GYN societies. Maybe that would be that would be easier. And of course, this is in the International Federation of OB-GYNs. that as a matter of fact, it does provide for priority for patient rights. Is that not correct?
I am familiar with that, Your Honor, and based on those declarations, they are supposed to provide the information.
Would you know, since you were, of course, the principal sponsor in the Senate and you would have conducted a lot of committee hearings, whether the Philippine OB-GYN Society is a member of that international OB-GYN organization with that declaration?
I believe they have a similar declaration, Your Honor, but I have to be transparent about this, that obviously they also have members who are very strong in their Catholic view, and personally they have other views. So I don't know how the society is dealing with that. But as a society, that is the right to health of the patient is paramount.
And as a matter of fact, even the World Medical Association, for which the Philippine Medical Association is a member, also has a similar declaration regarding patients' rights not to be prejudiced by the conscientious objector who may be the doctor or the health worker. Would
Yes,
I
Your
be
Honor.
correct in saying that?
Yes, Your Honor.
So in the determination of Congress in weighing the right of the conscientious objector and weighing the right of the patient, you came out with a balance. Is that not correct? And that balance is now found in Section 23, in that subparagraph. Am I correct to say that, Senator?
Yes, Your Honor. I have to say that I personally, along with members of our committee, really took a hard look on that, Your Honor, because I work very closely with the doctors and the Doctors Association, having been the chairman of the Committee on Health for many years. So I was very conscious of how this would affect their rights, of how this would affect the use of the information they have. And we came out with this decision, and it was upheld in both the Senate and the House and in the final version, Your Honor.
At present, would you know how many Catholic doctors would actually avail of that option, being a conscientious objector?
I am guessing, Your Honor, because I did not really conduct a survey, but because I've been invited to speak to so many medical associations, I can tell you by the nature of the reception to me when I speak on RH law, it's a very small percentage of group of doctors who believe strongly that they have the right to conscientious objection.
So it is there, but we are not sure whether more than 50% will use it, whether only 30%, whether 80% will use it.
Well, Your Honor, if I'm not mistaken, I do not recall that we even received any written position paper from any group of doctors that they want to avail of this, because and it's not as if they did not have access to me, because as I said, I've been the chairman of the Committee on Health and have passed so many laws, including the PhilHealth law, the cheaper medicine law, the FDA law. All of them have access to me, so I
So
don't
before
recall.
a doctor actually avails of this, that doctor will have to go through layers of decision. First, the ethical choices that doctor must do. Second would be their professional choices based upon their memberships in these organizations of their profession. And finally, of course, when they've done or made that decision, then they would come to a court of law or probably be hailed to a court of law. And that would mean whether the patient is actually going to file against the doctor. Is that not correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
At this point, if we rule on this provision, are we making a theoretical judgment?
Well, Your Honor, at this point it is premature.
What do you mean premature, counsel?
Well, we don't even have a case in point. We have no situation where you have a doctor who is availing of that right to use their conscientious objection. So it is almost like asking this court for declaratory relief, which I don't believe is part of the functions of this honorable court.
And we are assuming, of course, that the doctor and the patient exist in a vacuum.
Yes, Your Honor.
There may be certain circumstances, like for instance, a clinic with a poster. Or for that matter,
Yes.
The patient might not be somebody who does not eat 3 times a day, but somebody who comes from a particular status in life, etc. And therefore, there are many
Possible scenarios.
permutations of facts
Yes.
that we do need to take into consideration. And would you say that the danger is that, again, we will be replacing our own vote with that of the Senate, a majority of the Senate, majority of the House, and carte blanche, totally declare this as unconstitutional without taking into consideration the situations where our objections may apply or our objections may not apply?
Your Honor, in the statement that I made earlier, I mentioned that there were 72 amendments made in the Senate alone. 54 were accepted, 13 were put to a vote. One of this is a conscientious objection. And prior to this, there were 7 hearings that lasted 4-6 hours. So we have discussed this, and we humbly submit that this is a product of the wisdom of the Senate, of Congress, Your Honor.
Only if you would prefer to answer, because I know that this is the topic of Professor Hilbay. This chills. This provision has a chilling effect. It scares doctors. It scares the conscientious objector. Have you considered that in terms of your deliberations in the Senate and in the bicameral committee?
Yes, I would like to answer in line with His Honor's questions. Did we consider it? Yes, we considered it, Your Honor, and precisely why the way we worded the law was knowingly withholding information or restricting the dissemination of, because precisely we know that there are and there is a religious group who would not want to disseminate, who would not want to provide any kind of information on reproductive health that is contrary to their religious views. And we believe that the paramount concern of the state is to provide for the health of these women and these couples who need it. And that is why we needed to put this provision there. But it is not meant to be used maliciously against any doctor. And I think we must assume that in any law.
Maybe one more dimension
Yes,
before,
Your Honor.
Before I end. Information is different from opinion. Is that not correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
For instance, that you say that people can get pregnant by kissing. That is wrong information. Is that not correct?
Correct, Your Honor.
Are you sure people will not get pregnant by kissing?
If it doesn't accompany any other actions.
Okay. It is a precursor, but it is not necessarily the only cause that's necessary. Is that not correct?
Yes,
Thank
that
you
is
for
correct.
the education. The sex education right now. But on the other hand, when you say this condom is bad,
That
but
is an
it
opinion, Your Honor.
It's an opinion. Can you say this condom, when you use it, you are committing a mortal sin? Is that information?
No,
or
Your
opinion?
Honor. That is not information anymore.
So when a doctor says, you have to go to another physician because my conscience cannot tell you the other technologies that are available for you to space your children, but let me tell you, all of these are evil. Okay? Will that be punishable under the law?
Your Honor, the health provider did what is correct by referring the patient to somebody else. By saying it is evil, I think that is unprofessional and unethical, but I do not believe that it is punishable under the law, because what the law penalizes is knowingly withholding information or restricting the dissemination thereof, and or intentionally providing incorrect information. So to say that this is evil may be questionable,
A bit
Your
of
Honor.
exaggeration, but in order just to drive home that particular point, and perhaps you can cover that also in the memoranda that will be submitted to the court. Just that, of course, that there is that possibility that doctors can say that this particular material is not sanctioned by our beliefs.
Yes, Your Honor, and that is allowed. That is allowed.
So it is not subjected to criminal penalties.
No, Your Honor.
It is not within the concept of any violation of this law.
No, Your Honor. The freedom of expression allows a health provider to state their faith and to make, obviously, that goes beyond their call of duty to lecture the patient, but to just state their faith and say that I cannot provide you with the information because of my views is allowed, Your Honor.
Did you know, Senator, that in about 9 places in the RH law, you mentioned religion?
I'm sure I don't know if it's 9, but I know we repeated it many times.
For for the number of sections in this law, which is about, I'm sorry, let me
29. 30 with the effectivity clause, yes.
The effectivity clause. You mentioned religion 9 times. Why is that the case?
Because, Your Honor, we wanted to be sure that we protect the right of people to their faith, and we make it very clear that we are not imposing any religious view and that everyone is free to practice their faith in the context of the reproductive health law.
Thank you, Senator.